Good morning to you, Tim, and it was great to hear you on the radio again the other night. Fantastic stuff. But what I've found is that a couple of countries you'd think that'd be high on tech are really leading the way here. So I think the big question is for Victoria, will they be ready to roll with their QR codes, their contact tracing and the high-tech element with people returning from overseas? Because we know obviously they had massive dramas beforehand when it was low tech. Well, let's see how they go when it's going to be involving a lot of tech. So, yes, there's talk about tracing people as they come into Victoria, maybe possibly Australia, as the federal government talked about people going and sitting in their homes in other places for 14 days. So in places like Hong Kong, I'll use them as an example because the population, obviously the landmass is small, but the population similar to New South Wales and Victoria in those areas has a pretty low death rate considering that density of population. But they've gone hard with their tech. So when you go into Hong Kong, you will be required as a visitor to wear a watch that is like a GPS tracker, and you can't take that off for 2 weeks. You'll be facing heavy fines or jail if you do that, and that's part of the whole system. Now, it seems to be heavy-handed, Tim, but if you look at Hong Kong and you look at Singapore, and I was having a really deep dive about this, they go hard into working out how does it affect you and your family. There's a lot of support systems, manned telephone systems 24/7 to make sure people are being looked after. So it's not just about rolling out the tech, it's also the backup systems there, and that's what Australia and Victoria has to get right.
Yeah, and look, we're learning to live with it a lot better than we were in March, and that's pretty much the adaptability of humanity, isn't it, really? But I was out at the Australian Turf Club yesterday for the races, and what they've done there with those thermal imaging cameras, my mate that was with me, he's going, what's that all about? Because up it came, picture of us, took our temperature, took our shot, and it immediately knew where you were and how you were doing, health-wise, temperature-wise anyway.
Yeah, that's right. And this is the advantage of Asia has. Like, if you've flown anywhere through Asia over the last 20 years, and you go back to the previous virus situations that we've had to deal with, there have been mask wearings, but there's also these temperature reading cameras, and they're getting really good now in picking you out in the crowd. And that's essential to automate that thing. Automate the process of people coming in. Someone might have a high fever. It doesn't mean that you've got coronavirus. It just means it takes you to the next step to work it out. But you're absolutely right, Tim. Those things need to be rolled out just to make sure we can live with it. That's the key. Like we're going a long time now. We're almost at the end of the year, and I think we need to lean on our technological nous to make sure that we can still live with the virus, deal with the issues as we go along, because it's worked pretty well so far in New South Wales, and there's more tech to look at. So what that example that you saw the other day is a great one moving forward for Australia, and we also need to look into Asia at these key hubs like Singapore and in Hong Kong and take those top tech tips and try and implement them in Australia, because they're big hubs, so they're used to lots of people coming through. As we fire up our airlines again, and, we're talking earlier about how they were furloughed, to get them going again, we have to get this tech on board.
What happened to the COVID Safe app?
Good question. You know what? I've been testing all these different phones, and it sort of dropped off that have been delivered recently, the Apple phones and stuff, and I forgot about it. There's not much happening there. I said a couple of months on this show that it was a good idea, but they had to go back to the drawing board. And unfortunately, when people think that things aren't working, they just forget about it. You get a new phone, you forget to put the app on your phone, and it's not really doing the job. Now, I think they have to go and use the Google and Apple system where they've built in this tracing capability. But the big problem here, Tim, is trying to be anonymous in the data. That does make it difficult. So, yeah, but the COVID Safe app has got a lot of work to do. But, I've just had to re-put it on a couple of phones. But, yeah, it's pretty much disappeared from people's, from their the forefront of their thinking.
Yeah, it certainly has. QR codes, they're brilliant, aren't they? Everywhere you go, you've got your family, you might go to an RSL, boom, in it goes. Boom, crash opera. It saved businesses a lot of trouble. It is critical for Victoria. We've got Premier Daniel Andrews doing another announcement today, and this will come as no surprise to people in Melbourne that it's not going to be the full restrictions. But look, they've been through an ordinary old time. I've got family living in Melbourne. It is vital.
And Tim, I just hope that Victorian officials, they're not sort of saving it for the last minute. They're sort of getting people fired up in Victoria what to do with their QR codes, because it's pretty easy in New South Wales and Queensland. And, for example, where you can just go to the New South Wales website and get a code for your business. And, I've been to restaurants too in the bush where you've had to write down, use a pen that someone else is using, write down your name and address with a group of people, and then go into other ones that are a bit more tech savvy where they've been able to get a QR code for their business. Saves businesses a lot of time, energy, and do what they're supposed to do, is get us, earning money for the community and getting people out and about in a safe way. So the QR codes are fantastic. I just hope it's all sorted for Victoria, because it is working here in New South Wales, and we are dealing with cases as they come up. But the QR codes, it's not a bad system. It's pretty easy. All your smartphones can read it, so it launches your link to that particular business, and away you go. And your data just stays for a couple of weeks, and then it's gone.
Yeah, I know, I'm being selfish. I cannot wait to get to Melbourne. I love the place, and got so many people that I love down there, and they've been through a difficult time. All right, lightening the subject, you've been playing with the new iPhone, but the iPad Air is the real star. Tell me.
Oh, it is, Tim, and I'll just go to camera 2 here in the studio, and there it is. Now, what I love about this thing, it's almost a laptop, and you see the pen at the top, but this is, I'm going to call it a laptop, but this thing here is the iPad Air for about $900. Now, it's $400 odd cheaper than the Pro version, and I think it's incredible because it is value for money. If you're looking for a device that substitutes as a laptop as well as a tablet, then this thing is the go. The iPad Air is incredible, and in a couple of ways it's better than the Pro. But what I wanted to show you is something about Apple moving forward. So on the side, there's no camera at the top, Tim, there's no Face ID at the front. So you're relying on this, which is a return to Touch ID. So how about that? Now, the great thing about Touch ID in the days of COVID that we're dealing with is that you don't have to look down it with a mask or whatever. You can just turn it on there. Now, that to me is an indication that these phones at some point will end up losing or adding Touch ID. We're sort of hoping to have it there. I'm a big fan of Touch ID because it just means you don't have to have the phone up to your face all the time, and particularly with masks it makes it difficult. But the other thing I wanted to say, Tim, is that moving forward, I think the MagSafe on the back is going to be a game changer for Apple. I believe that will end of the days for the Lightning port at the bottom, as you can see here on the phone, and everything will come through the back here. Wow. And that includes things like this gimbal, which will go on the side there and, attached to the sort of the back of the iPhone like that. This one's not strong enough yet, but that's where it's heading. So Apple's always been after cleaning up all the ports, but I think that MagSafe connector is the start of losing all sorts of cables connecting to your iPhone down the track. So it'll be completely wireless. It's coming at some point, but you can see the things that Apple put in their devices down the track.
It's been a hugely difficult time for the world the past year, but there has been a lot of positives. The tech world has exploded. Like there you are sitting in your little Maroubra bunker and you're cutting to cameras, you're using all television technology all by yourself. You're a talented man. Good to see you, Djuro. Enjoy the Rugby League Grand Final.
We'll do. Your Penrith Panthers. Good luck, Timmy.
Yeah, head says Melbourne, heart says Penrith. It's going to be a ripper.